Hi all, I'm Thomas and this is Power Platform done quick. Today I'd like to talk to you about logging, how I log my desktop flows or handle logging a desktop flow that's going on and being processed. Now I think we can all agree that Power Automate has some pretty cool features, but one of them that isn't cool is this logging. Now this is an example of a log. As you can see, it's infinite, huge, it's saved in the cloud. You don't have any control. Well, you do, but not really have control over it. And it's not that good when you want to do error handling. So how I remedy this and handle is by adding a logging feature myself. Now, as you can see, I create a CSV file every time. And this CSV file is always accessible from different computers. So I usually use a SharePoint, a OneDrive, a network drive, or whatever. And this CSV file has 4 columns and they're tab separated like this, with the subflow, action, comment, and timestamp. Now, while my process is being run, I write to this CSV file, and I do it like this with the write to CSV file action, of course. As you can see, it always has append content, and the separator for the CSV file is a tab separator. And this variable that it writes is a list variable, and that's how you write to CSV files. You write a list at a time. You don't write string variables or string values. Now the list is here in the beginning of the flow. I'll always make the list, just log list like this. And every time I want to log something, I have this set variable and a run subflow log write. Now in the set variable, I'll have 3 values: the subflow, the action number, which action am I actually at when logging, and some comment that I'd like to make. Now this is starting flow because it's at the very beginning. And then it'll enter this log write subflow. Now in the log write subflow, it'll get the current date and time, and then I convert datetime to text action. Now I usually like to use a custom datetime here. Now you don't have to use a custom, you can use the predefined ones. But whatever, I save the text with the timestamp into the log timestamp variable. And then I use a set variable to add that log time to the log list. Wow, I'm saying log a lot. It's getting weird. Log. Well, anyway, this is how that looks. Just a simple plus operator, and you'll add a value to your list. Alright, cool. And as you can see, I'll just show you again. Now I'll write the log list to the CSV file. And that's fine and dandy. So let me show you how this works in action. So I just made a quick loop here that goes from 0 to 9, and in the beginning of the loop I'll make a new log list variable. Now this changes every time because I'm putting a variable inside the last value, the third value here. So you can see it says looping, and then it adds the loop index variable. It concatenates to the string, so I know which iteration of the loop I'm actually in. And of course that's cool, because you'd want to add variables. You'd want to add dynamic content to your log so you can see what's going on with your flows, especially when error handling. So that's pretty cool. And then a log write, so this only logs something. Alright, cool, so let's run it. Yeah, that's at 1. Quick side note, this value here, it determines the delay between each action, so always put it to 1 because it'll be very slow if it's at 100. Cool, let's check the log, and it's there. So that's basically how I log. But this doesn't really look that good. I mean, I can't really see anything quite. And I can't open this CSV file as it's being written to. So how's this solved? Well, I use a program called Beartail. Now, Beartail is a free program. You can just Google Beartail, and there's plenty of log programs. You don't have to use this, you can use whatever. What it does is it takes a copy of the CSV file every 250 milliseconds and it shows you the copy it's taken here, so I can follow what's going on in the file. Now, what I especially like is this highlighting feature. You can see I can highlight different steps in the log, and I choose a background color green for when starting a flow, so it'll always be this. And you can do whatever you want. You can do maybe a magenta, whatever that is, when finishing flow. So it's easy to look at. I always use green when starting, blue when a new case is starting, yellow if a case is skipped, and of course red when there's an error. And it's easy and quick for the eye to see what's gone wrong. Okay, so that's basically what I do, and I do it with every process, and I really suggest that you do the same, or something similar at least, so we know what's going on, and especially with error handling. We can make our processes much more stable if we have an easier way of determining what's gone wrong. Well, okay, apart from that, I'd like to show you what I do with Cloudflows. Now, when I run these desktop flows, I have this Cloudflow template. And every time I want to run a desktop flow, I take a copy of this template and give it an appropriate name. So what this is, it's a recurrence flow, of course, and it has an initialized variable successful that's set to false. And here in the first scope, you can see it's going to run a desktop flow. Now, after the desktop flow, there's a set variable action. This will set the success bool to true, but it'll only happen if this run desktop action is actually successful. Now, if it's unsuccessful, if there's an error in this, the try scope will catch the error and the Cloudflow will continue knowing there is an error. Usually the flow would fail, but in this catch scope here, you can see if I click configure run after, this will run if the try scope has failed, is skipped, or has timed out. So that's perfect, I can do all my error handling and just put it in here. I just put something random because it's different what you want to do with error handling from flow to flow. Now this just sends a mail and notifies me, and you could do a Teams message or whatever you'd like. Now the last one is the interesting one, the wrap up. If I click configure run after, you can see this runs no matter what the catch scope is actually doing. If it's successful, if it's failed, skipped, or timed out, this will always run. And you can see there's an if sentence with the successful that I showed you earlier. And if the successful is true, that means the desktop flow has run properly. And in here, I have a bunch of stuff that updates Dataverse. I always like statistics. I actually love statistics. And I want to know how well my automations are doing. So, for example, how many cases have you actually run? How many have you skipped? How many errors does this automation do? And so on and so on. And I'll save that in Dataverse because it's easily accessible and I can access Dataverse from all my other stuff, from my Power Apps and Power BI or whatever you want. And what this does is that it'll update Dataverse with the flow. Now, the cool thing about this is that I don't have to make a statistical effort every time I make a new process. I just use this template, and the template will update with the statistics. So basically, it's free. If you want advice to make this Dataverse thing or whatever, you can always private message me, and I'll get back to you soon. Yeah, before ending, I'd like to give a quick shout out to Anders Jensen. Wow, that name is very difficult to pronounce in English. In Danish, it's Anders. Well, he's like the best RPA YouTuber we have, and he's giving me some great advice on doing these videos, and hopefully it will stick soon. So thanks, Anders. Really, I appreciate it. Alright guys, hope you learned anything.